Again on the second day of our annual Partnership Forum. I hope you all had already some very interesting discussions in the parallel workshops this morning. As you know, today we will discuss the future framework, so-called FP10, and we obviously need and want the input from the stakeholders on how we should tackle the challenges or how we can improve partnerships under the next framework program. As we heard yesterday, partnerships will be without doubt part of the next the next framework program. As we saw yesterday in the panel, it makes a lot of sense to continue. They are very crucial for us, and we have to keep working together. So before we go to the next panel and the presentation by the co-chair of the PKH, by Alex, we will have two partnership pitches. The first one will be given by Margarita Capaletto. She's from the Partnership Sustainable Blue Economy. She works in the Ministry of Universities and Research. And before that, she worked as a project manager at the National Research Council of Italy. Please, warm welcome to her.
Good morning, everyone. The Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership has the vision to address the transition towards, to trigger the transition towards a sustainable blue economy by 2030, recognizing the blue economy trends, as well as the need to preserve the health of the marine environment if we want to guarantee the sustainability of the economic activities at sea. For this reason, 30 countries, together with the European Commission, are committing and pooling resources to deliver green and digital solutions. Today, I would like to focus on some measures that we deemed necessary to support the impact of the partnership. First of all, we have designed a very clear strategy with an impact pathway, meaning that we do not stop with the launch of the calls, but we are pretty much interested into the follow-up of projects and the measurement of their impact through KPIs, therefore the monitoring. We have identified in this regard, the 5 thematic areas of intervention that are impact-oriented. They are driving our joint calls, but also, and most importantly, our additional activities. Here you have an overview of the calls that are still remaining for us to launch. So in total, there will be 6 joint calls. Now we just have our first 19 projects running, and others will come at the beginning of 2025. But please consider that as a second measure of impact, not only joint calls are a key tool, but also the additional activities, as we just saw in the session, in the parallel session B2 before. Among those, I would like to address one of them, which is the sharing of research infrastructure. For the first time in our partnership, February 2025, we will launch a call for access to research infrastructure. In this case, this is an activity that is surely supporting further impact of our partnership for the many different reasons that you can list, but just to pick one about internationalization and widening and the opportunity that such an activity can give to less or differently equipped countries to access research infrastructure that will made available, will be offered by partners of the partnership. This way, we are supporting our international cooperation actions that are regularly carried out by our licensing office in Brussels, the Brussels Cellule. Last but not least, not only we ask in the call text for our applicants to address the impact pathway, as the partnership has addressed in the overall strategy, as well as the theory of change, and to make reference to the European taxonomy, reflecting how economic activities significantly contribute to environmental objectives, but also we train them to get prepared for the market and develop a compelling marketing strategy. As we heard before, yesterday in the plenary by Rosalind, if I'm not mistaken, the technology readiness level is not enough if it is alone. It should be accompanied by the business readiness level that supports filling the gap between a technology and the preparedness to be applied in the real world. On top of that, we make them aware about funding opportunities for further scaling up their results. To conclude, the take-home messages are that you should consider, additional activities should be considered pivotal for impact on top of joint cause. Co-funded projects should be accompanied towards impact, being aware that not all applicants should become entrepreneurs, but they have to be duly trained and made aware about the opportunities around. Of course, their outcomes should be monitored through KPIs to further readdress the strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that elaborate, interesting presentation on the Sustainable Blue Economy Partnership. Then I would like to welcome as our next speaker, Caroline Villarouge from EIT Manufacturing. She's the CEO. Prior to the EIT Manufacturing, she held different senior management positions in the industry. And with that being said, I will give you the floor for your presentation.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor for me to be here with you today to present you the partnership from EIT Manufacturing perspective. As we stand in the crossroads of this industrial revolution, we find ourselves tasked by not just maintaining and rebuilding a competitive edge, but redefining what it means to lead the world in this rapid changing moment. And here you need to tell me how it works. Wonderful, thank you. We gather, as I said, in this pivotal moment for Europe, pivotal moment for the manufacturing industry. Manufacturing industry is being the backbone of the European industry. It does represent 16% of the GDP. We have 2.1 million enterprises across Europe working on the manufacturing space, and from a people perspective, it is 32 million jobs. It's a big base of prosperity, and what is important to say is that that prosperity, which we want to maintain and ever further develop, is facing some main challenges. We, in IT Manufacturing, identify 5 main challenges that we are addressing. The first one is the skill gaps. As I said, technology is going at a pace we've never seen before, requiring some new skills, new competences, and at the same time, we have the challenge of an aging population in Europe. The second challenge is the lack of diversity. Manufacturing industry is having 30% of representation of female workers. This is one of the lowest industry with construction. Having a diversity higher is not just a question of equality, it's in the space of innovation, a key topic, as innovative teams are 8 times more likely to be more innovative and agile. The linear production model is obviously a key challenge we're also addressing to reduce waste, but also reuse material and efficiency in the production. Circular economy here is a key topic we are addressing in EIT Manufacturing. The greenhouse gas emission, manufacturing space account for 21% of CO2 equivalent emission in Europe, according to Eurostat 2022. This is also a key challenge we need to maintain in mind despite the different discussion we're having these days. Last but not least, the insufficient resilience. We've seen in the last year, from COVID crisis to geopolitical situation, more will surely come next year, that being resilient, thinking of the supply chain, of the overall value chain of the different industry we are supporting is key, and this has been something identified as a weak point for us. EIT Manufacturing, we are a public-private partnership co-founded by the European Union. We are a pan-European community focused on innovation in manufacturing through a unique active ecosystem. We have more than 170 partners across Europe, from industry leader connecting business, startups, academics, and research institutions to truly make innovation happen. More than half of our partners are coming from the industry, and this is extremely important for us in the manufacturing space. They are the driver of the change with the support of research, academia, and startups. What we do in the active manufacturing, we accelerate the digital and green transition. We have 4 main axes of activity we're running. We first of all broadening the network and collaboration through ecosystem, matchmaking, and different learning expedition. We are boosting viable innovation through different call for proposal activity to truly push innovation out of the lab. We are developing skills and competences, making sure that we have different programs, learning platform to support our partners to upskill and reskill their workforce to the new technology which is coming. And last but not least, we accelerate growth to the access to different funding, access to finance, and support for scale-up investment. What brings me to this podium today is to present to you a great initiative. Innovate Together. Innovate Together is being piloted in 2022 with the support of Made in Europe, EFRA Partnership. We are linking and closing the gap between Pillar 2 of Horizon Europe and Pillar 3, where EIT Manufacturing and EIT is sitting. We are moving from open research under Pillar 2 to open innovation, and working together with the GRTD support, we launched a pilot, first of all, in 2022, leading to successful innovation. 3 projects in the pilot were successfully launched to market. I wanted to bring a concrete example because this is here a lot of talk, and sometimes I like talking concrete in the manufacturing space about the concrete example of project we've been supported. Here is the LAM project. LAM project is an additive manufacturing solution, printing titanium alloy and steel material. We supported them, again, to push this innovation out of the lab, to support the commercialization through the pilot of Innovate Together with the support of EFRA. Today, LAM, they are commercializing and selling the solution to aerospace and energy industry. So a nice success story to show that the collaboration between Pillar 2 with EFRA and Pillar 3 of EIT Manufacturing succeed from a research to innovation to the market. And this success of the pilot brought us into a call, Innovate Together 2024. This is the 2nd edition of the call, which is co-programmed and co-designed with the support of the GRTD, with the objective and the purpose to support industrial actors to fast-track and commercialize key manufacturing technology. We are working around the topic of Net Zero Industry Act and the different industry sector it is addressing. There are two specific topics in this call, which is open right now. I encourage everyone to flash the QR code with your phone where you will get more information. It's first time right manufacturing, addressing the digital twins, activity and predictive maintenance, and end-of-life management with the circular design and easy disassembly. The call is open until mid-January, so if you have anyone in your ecosystem, in your network interested to join the call, please feel free to disseminate this information. It's a 5 million budget with 2 million supported by the GRTD and 3 million supported by EIT. That was an example I wanted to bring to you today as a successful collaboration, and obviously we want to build even further this collaboration with Pillar 2, with EFRA and EIT. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I would like to thank both panelists for expressing interest, for taking part in these events and doing your presentation. Thanks a lot. Then, without further ado, I would pass the floor to my head of unit for the next part of the agenda, which is the summaries of the workshops.
Good morning, everyone, and I would like also to thank the two panelists for their insights into their partnerships. This morning and also yesterday, you had workshops, roundtables, in order to discuss the achievements of the partnerships and also the forthcoming and also reflecting on the future of those partnerships. Those groups have identified some recommendations and some findings. So I would like to call all the rapporteurs of these different groups to come on stage and also to share with us the achievements. The first group will be the participants to the rapporteurs of the groups that worked along various clusters, Cluster 1, Cluster 4, Cluster 5, and Cluster 6, and there were discussions on the achievements and on the impact of those partnerships. So if I could call the rapporteurs on stage, and then we would move on with the workshops that have been taken place this morning, and which discussed about the achievement, the improvements and the future of partnerships in the context of the next framework programs preparation. So please, rapporteur, the floor is yours. You take the floor here.
Thank you. Okay, just okay. So I have the privilege to start with the Cluster 1, which is about health. And so we had yesterday the workshop on two very vibrant and dynamic topics that were identified as very relevant for the health cluster. And these were, the first one was AI in healthcare, and the second one was about health and societal readiness, and especially about the outreach activities. So what we have discussed in terms of the first one was how do we apply the artificial intelligence in healthcare? What are the challenges and solutions? And as you can see here, we have identified that there are actually 3 different levels of application. So first one is really the adoption in the partnership, so that in terms of operation, calls, how the AI is being implemented inside of the partnership. Then about the research collaboration, so how do we bring together the different communities? And the first one was really at the strategic level when it comes to the building of the joint policies, either being between the partnerships or at the European and national level. So we have identified specific challenges. So first, the fact that there is lack of harmonized approach, for example, in the calls at present. The second one, that the communities are still disconnected between the health and digital AI community. And then there is a need for more user integration. And then there is still a misunderstanding about the different regulations, how these connect to each other, and how actually this can impact the different, let's say, policies and strategies. So the proposed solutions that we have identified is first to have quite quickly, rapidly, a joint evaluation and assessment framework for the partnerships when it comes to the implementation of the AI in the calls or the proper activities of the partnerships. The second one, to bring together the communities we can do it through the organization of hackathons, convergence meetings, to bring the community together and build also the understanding through the specific workshops on regulations. And finally, to create, maybe at the level of the Partnership Knowledge Hub, a high-level group, support group to the partnerships and policymakers for this specific topic. When it comes to the outreach activities, again, in terms of the level of applications, we agreed that there is a need for a common narrative, because if you want to better reach out to the community, that means also that doing things together makes sense. There is the need for specific dissemination and communication, and then direct application, especially for the topics like the responsible research, and the specificities also of the translating to policy and the policy stakeholder engagement. So in terms of the challenges identified, we have the issue of the attractiveness, what are the most attractive formats, how to better connect to especially to the medical societies, but also involved and early on patients, and then how to translate the results of the research and of what we are doing into the policymaker language and policies. And so the solutions that were proposed are working more jointly also on the specific dissemination formats like podcast, video, or words, but also training and lay language summaries that can be also done jointly by the partnerships to reach out better to the medical community. The engagement of patients should be done early on, and there are a lot of different initiatives already ongoing on. The education of patient experts, but also workshops, trainings, and mock sessions. And then when it comes to the policy integration, it means that we need to involve them as early on as possible, make sure that we reach out to the available also format like the governing boards, national contact points and specific hubs to engage the discussion. And then there are a lot of resources that already exist, and to make them more visible also to the partnership community, it would make sense to have a centralization, for example, through the ERA-Learn of those resources so they are better visible and the knowledge sharing can be more efficient. And with that, I will end. Thank you.
I think the next one is for A2, the Digital Space and Industry Cluster. Yes, if we can move on. So we addressed the discussion with three specific questions. The one was from SRIA to project portfolio. The other one was synergies among partnerships, and the third one was responding to the needs of industry. So we had 4 representatives of partnerships sharing their experiences with us. And across the different examples, the different experiences, we saw that there were some key common themes. And of course, in addressing the needs of industry as a stakeholder, it is very important to have regular communication and regular engagement. And this is facilitated not only through the involvement in the SRIA development, but also in the involvement in specific focus groups, like the European Metrology Networks, but also other focus groups and structures that the partnerships have developed to facilitate this close engagement. Then we talked about the other commonality is that they need to be engaged as early and as regular as possible. And this is important not only for partnerships that need their input in terms of measurement needs, for example, for the metrology partnership, but also in terms of application areas or forming test beds and developing demonstration projects, which is very important in partnerships, for example, like clean aviation, or the IT manufacturing. You also had a very valuable experience shared, which is, as it was presented before from IIT Manufacturing, the Innovate Together program, which is a very good example about jointly creating the line towards the innovation end. And this could serve as a very valuable experience for other partnerships exactly to follow. And an interesting point that was heard was that synergies among the partnerships in the similar areas may have fulfilled their objectives, or they may not be as important as there are synergies between programs addressing different TRL levels, like what is being done actually as an example by EIT Manufacturing together with EFRA. Connections with EIC were also mentioned to be important, so this is a step to go forward for most of them. The cross-cutting nature of the thematic area proved to be something like a decisive factor for synergies, but also for developing a portfolio of projects. But this remains further to be examined. The point was also made that more resources are needed for administration to establish these synergies, because they seem to be an add-on rather than an integrated feature of the design of the partnerships. Need to be transparent in terms of creating synergies and also have them rationalized, have a clear rationale behind them. And of course, the synergies with the different funding sources like the structural funds were also mentioned, even though, as the BMR showed, there are concrete examples, but still they are in the early phases. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jakob, and I had the honor to report on the Cluster 5 session, which was really interesting because we gathered all the different partnership types on stage, discussing the success of the last years in these partnerships, and we also developed some ideas looking a bit forward, and I would like to present it to you. So in the beginning, we asked all our participants, ranging from mobility partnerships to zero and CCAM, to aviation, and to clean energy transition, how successful do they think they were themselves in translating this RIA into real projects? That's what partnerships are about, aren't they? And they say, yes, it worked, but it takes time. And of course it takes time, and it's not a drawback, it's just a learning that translating a strategy together in a participative manner with so many diverse stakeholders that are usually not talking with each other outside of these partnerships, it takes time, it's normal. And it is a huge benefit for them to talk and to align their strategies. So the diversity of these huge communities helps, but it's also a little bit of an effort. And that's perhaps a learning from all the partnerships. How about learning participation? Don't we need some capacity building in there, not only for the partnerships who moderate such and facilitate such processes, but also the stakeholders who are involved. They also need to learn how to give feedback, how to comment, how to design and co-design together. So it's a learning process within the R&D community, I would say. Then we came to the next question. What are the key factors to achieve real impact? We had a large discussion on that, so let me just give you the two main points of that. And you will have, later on in the report of this, you will have much more input. So a huge benefit of each partnership is its de-risking potential for the entire community. I think we should highlight this a lot. Why is it de-risking? On the one hand, the community comes together and brings in budgets from different angles. And through aligning strategies, each stakeholder, each partner in the partnership is somehow assured that the joint goals will be translated into reality. And to use this de-risking effect, of course, we need participation, but also joint road mapping. And the road mapping, some of the partnerships apply not only a technical view, they really want to have all the economic, the ecologic, the societal dimension as well in it. And this allows the translation of systemic solutions. Imagine mobility, for example. Mobility is not working in a glass house. No, it's working in the real life with so many interest groups up there. So more complex road mapping is necessary, and it works quite good, but it is a key factor to achieve the impact. And another idea of the panelists were to achieve more impact. Why not fusing different sources of funding better together with other programs, seeking synergies with other programs, and also seeking synergies on the national level to implement systemic solutions in the real life of people on the member states, in the member states. Okay, and now speaking of synergies, that was the next question. How do partnerships create synergies? And all the partnerships say synergies is such a trendy topic nowadays, but they started really ages ago. So in Cluster 5, synergies were created right from the start. And we have so many different instruments here. It was funny to get a long list. So joint conferences help a lot to have an exchange. But even some of the partnerships work in the same building. That means they have the daily, regular exchange to learn from each other, which was really, appreciated. And then we find joint coordination groups, for example, in CCAM and 2.0. And this leads also to joint programming activities, for example, in the instrument of the European missions. And again and again, it was highlighted how important it is to have joint roadmaps and joint road mapping activities in order to utilize synergies. And then there was an open question. We didn't answer it, but an open question left. In order to explore and utilize more synergies across partnerships, why not having something top-down from the European Commission launched a process for developing joint roadmaps and make it not mandatory, but simplify a process that allows joint road mapping across more partnerships, not only a few of them. This was an idea and we left it open. Then we came to the threats and the needs and opportunities of collaboration with other countries. And looking into the international dimension, we see so many opportunities that internationalization and international collaboration is the way to strengthen international relations and to stay competitive. Competitiveness was a really important topic, and I come to the end in a minute, but especially towards the grand challenges of our time, like the climate crisis, the biodiversity crisis, international collaboration is mandatory. Otherwise, we cannot find global solutions. So, of course, every partnership is aware of some limits of collaborating with other countries, giving IP away, etc. But still, they see a real need for internationalization. And the good thing is about collaboration. You learn from the others. You stay up front of competition by learning from one another, and fill gaps in Europe through the learning process. So all in all, it was a really good panel, and if you have more questions, you find me later on here. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Lorenzo, and I will try to stay within the 2 minutes I have to... How does it work? The cluster 6, okay. Food, bioeconomy, and natural resources, agriculture, and environment. The activity was divided into 4 topics: joint activities between partnerships, stakeholder engagement, international cooperation and enlargement, and partnership implementation aspects. Many topics and suggestions and hints, ideas emerged. I will try to summarize them. With respect to the first topic, the joint goals, the joint activities, sorry. The most important point that emerged was the fact that the joint goals are still an objective, but it's too challenging and too complex. So alternative activities around projects must be considered, such as project clustering, coordination of strategic research and innovation agendas, coordination of calls, living labs, activities on data monitoring. As a consequence of this, joint communication actions and policy briefs would be needed. From a governance organization, cross-participation in stakeholder boards would be useful, as well as a more increasing cooperation for the compulsory task. The main challenges with respect to the joint activities are the resources and the time that is not easy to manage. Emerged a clear desire for more best practice and tool sharing in order to save time to work on synergies and joint activities. Regular meetings were emphasized as an important instrument. As a general proposal, according to the participants, the Cluster 6 should be provided with a kind of task force. An example of this could be the EIT community model that was quoted by someone as an example. Second topic, stakeholder engagement. Engagement strategies are needed. Stakeholders should be informed and able to provide ongoing feedback, continuous feedback, to build trust and foster collaboration for successful project outcomes. In order to receive feedback, it's important to have specific key tools for stakeholder engagement, such as forums and networking platforms, regional workshops, national coordination systems, policy briefs, living labs, etc. A sector-specific consultation would be needed and more customized and specific through homogeneous groups, committee of stakeholders. By doing this, the communities could be better engaged. In the early stages of the activities, kind of co-creation practices would be very useful to align the stakeholders' needs and enhance the project relevance and acceptance. It's also important to be more engaged for the financial sustainability, building from the beginning relationships with investors for the project viability. Third topic I was personally involved in, the international cooperation and enlargement. Advantages, disadvantages, and criticalities were emphasized, as well as open challenges and solutions. The main advantages of the internationalization would be, according to the participants, the inclusion of the underrepresented countries and regions, the diversification and widening of the sources of funding, as well as the diversification of the risk, learning from the diversity, the economies of scale linked to the global value chain, the opening the partnerships to the development aid practices for the developing countries, while the main disadvantages and criticalities emphasized were the cultural and institutional barriers, a more complex administration, a hard management of a too large and internationalized structure, a more stratified layer governance, higher risks of inequalities in the different fundings received by the partnerships for the different partners, more difficulties for the smaller partners to exert their power, a limited funding capacity of some new potential partners, etc. The open challenges and solutions are the one of managing the differences, giving value to the synergies among the diverse partners, attracting the big global players, and enabling the small partners to become coordinators, as well as overcoming the unequal weights of the partners involved. Interesting examples were mentioned of specific involvement of countries beyond the European borders, such as Africa. The relevance of the African countries was several times emphasized for the Cluster 6 due to the specificity of the topic, but many criticalities also emerged in having granted the funding, as well as political issues in the relationships. And then also with the Latin American countries, some circumstances emerged from Spanish partnerships attempts to create connections with the Latin American countries were not finalized because the European Union didn't have specific agreement with them. So the suggestion is to permit, to make easier relations with those countries that do not have a specific agreement with the European Union. And same difficulties were encountered with the Eastern Europe countries, such as Georgia, Ukraine, Albania, Montenegro, Croatia, etc. I conclude with the last topic, partnership implementation aspects. A lot of hints emerged and clues. A burden of the successive proposals emerged, as well as an untailored, the fact that the tools seem to be untailored. The grant agreement model is not adequate, as well as the proposal template not appropriate for the partnerships. Another issue is the one of the size that also emerged in the previous topic, the one of the internationalization. That is that the big consortia seem to be too difficult to manage for different obvious reasons. The newcomers require a complex training and new tools to facilitate and accelerate full involvement would be needed. There's insufficient funding rate, a gap filling, a problem with managing under-subscription and over-subscription of the funding, difficulties in determining the national commitments, to define the budget competition at national level, the connectivity between partnerships, etc. And many other hints I don't mention, otherwise I take too much time. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you to the rapporteurs of the first workshops that took place yesterday. I would now like to call the rapporteurs of the workshops which discussed improvements for FP10. Here we had a workshop on partnerships portfolio building, instrument design, and then also multi-actor collaborations. So please, rapporteurs, the floor is yours. I would like to remind every rapporteur to keep it short since we are a bit late in schedule. Thank you.
Yes, I will just bring you just the gist of this. It was a very interactive session where we had different groups discussing portfolio building, how to make it coherent and strategic along different dimensions. We had 5 different dimensions. First of all, how to justify the use of the partnership approach for addressing an issue. So we looked into their advantages but also their drawbacks. So it's advantages where synergies, structuring the R&I field, welcoming industry, long-term networking, and to discuss also what would be the criteria for evaluating when a partnership approach should be taken or not. So collecting the capacity to collect funds, to attract stakeholders, to balance the top-down and a bottom-up approach, and also inclusivity for smaller stakeholders. The second dimension, we looked into the size of the thematic. Should the thematic of a partnership be broad or should it be narrow? We looked at the advantages and the disadvantages of each. Advantage of broad is the flexibility, the diversity of stakeholders that it welcomes. It is also more stable to uncertainty and as well shifting priorities. It's easier to create synergies. It simplifies, while the narrow is a lot easier to identify with a single problematic and to find one message of impact and change for the partnership. It's also an easier governance. The third dimension out of 5 was the process of identification of a partnership to build that portfolio. Should this process be top-down or should it be bottom-up? And the groups discussed that it should actually be a combination of the two in order to have both a strategic and systematic first layer that would be top-down, that should be strategic, systematic, transparent, and structured, building on knowledge, on foresight and political priorities, and then on the basis of this top-down, a bottom-up second layer of a bottom-up process that should be also strengthened. We also looked at coherence versus synergies versus overlap, how to distinguish the two, how to make criteria in order, at the stage of the partnership candidates, in order to mitigate, identify and mitigate overlaps, but also to foster synergies when there are some. And finally, the last dimension was stakeholder participation. Should a partnership be open to all, or should it be interest-based? Of course, there are some challenges if it's open to all in terms of the quantity of members and the difficulty to manage such a big memberships and diverse membership, but the commitment to a partnership is also a way to build community, but we also highlighted the advantage of an open to all partnership that would be inclusivity and openness, noting that it can be difficult for some smaller countries or companies to participate in all, so maybe a flexible approach would be right here. I will stop here, and if anyone wants to add their views to each of these dimensions, we have a Slido. There is a QR code on the wall here, and you can still, whether you participated in the session or not, give us your thoughts on these topics. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Catherine Kapfinger. I'm from DG Research and Innovations Partnerships Unit, and I had the pleasure this morning to moderate and report from a session that we had on instrument design. So regarding instrument design, we saw that Horizon Europe has brought about important simplification efforts, but the instrument remains quite complex with 5 different implementation types, some with overlapping purposes, different approaches when it comes to implementation structures, and additional activities, for instance. And what we've seen overall is that implementation remains quite complex, and as an instrument, partnerships are not the easiest for beneficiaries, for partners to find their way in and get a grasp of. So with this session, we tried in a very interactive way to rethink the partnerships instrument and how we can make it simpler and more effective and efficient for the next framework program. So our reflections focused on 4 key themes: the typology, or the different implementation types that we currently have, additional activities, implementation structures, and the life cycle. So when we were talking about the typology and the different implementation types, we tried to see kind of what the benefits and the drawbacks are of having what is still a relatively strict delineation between public-public versus public-private, and the fact that tripartite currently is not the norm, and whether we could simplify this typology as we have it now. And here, some important reflections that came out of that discussion group was that all of these different types of partnerships fulfill their own specific purpose, that in some cases it's a matter of building trust between the different partners, but that going forward, a more flexible approach, or possibly a modular approach to ensuring that we can bring in all of the partners that we need when we try to tackle the same challenges, could be really beneficial. Regarding additional activities, we discussed what the benefits and the challenges are of having additional activities on top of what still is the partnership's main business, funding research and innovation. And here we could all agree that there is value in additional activities, that partnerships are and should be more than just funding machines. And for the future, what we could do to find a more coherent approach to additional activities could be to come up with a common toolbox, or more clear definitions or rules for how additional activities should be designed, implemented, and reported on. Regarding implementation structures, we had discussions on the drawbacks and benefits of a common back office, or to kind of consolidate implementation structures and back office functions as much as possible, versus what we have now, very individualized or quite individualized implementation structures. What the main takeaways from that discussion was that for some aspects it would make a lot of sense, for instance, for common IT structures, while for others it could be rather challenging when we talk about HR, for instance. Last but not least, on the life cycle, we discussed a few different approaches to the life cycle, a built-in exit versus a result-focused approach. And what came out of the life cycle discussion was basically that now under Horizon Europe, as we have this obligation of coming up with a phasing out strategy, we see that it's being approached by partnerships in quite different ways. It should not just be a box-ticking exercise, but a true reflection on the future of the partnerships. And what was very important is that we allocate enough time to wind down the partnerships. So overall, I think the key takeaways for FP10 on instrument design are that we need to strike a balance between simplification and flexibility. And to cite one of the groups from this morning, one size fits none. So we basically need to find a balance, and this is going to be a very challenging task, to make sure that we can accommodate the specificities of the different partnerships and the communities that they respond to and the topics that they tackle, while at the same time trying to make the instrument more simple and more streamlined where possible, to make sure that we don't all get caught up in administrative burdens. Thank you very much.
So I'm the last one before the important panel discussion, so I'll try to keep it very short. So I had the pleasure to, my name is Pirita Lindholm, I'm Director of ERIN, European Regions Research and Innovation Network, and I'm part of the ERA Learn Advisory, and I had the chance to moderate the session on multi-actor collaboration and how can we ensure impacts with that collaboration. So very shortly, a couple of key points. So we discussed really on how can we, on one hand, keep the existing community that is around the partnerships already there involved, but also how can we ensure that there will be new stakeholders and actors coming in. So there were a number of examples on this, for example, for the circular Bio-based Europe, where they have a specific strategy on widening and also have prepared some calls for that. Then we talked about really the importance of the fact that creating impactful collaboration takes time. So therefore, it's really important to connect the different needs, have support to take those into account. Be open, so and allow different actors to join, and of course also build trust between the different actors. This led to quite some discussion on how can we overcome fragmentation. Fragmentation can be presented in different ways, but maybe as an example there, from the CCAM partnership, their governance model, which is very open and really takes into account the difference, so basically involves the whole RNI ecosystems around automated, coordinated and connected mobility. So this is really a model that can be used maybe in other co-programmed partnerships as well. And then, maybe looking at this question of everyone seems to be still somehow struggling with the collaboration and synergies, and it was really clear that this cannot be a kind of an add-on in the partnership. It needs to be embedded in the work from the start. It needs to be part of the work plan, if I can put it this way. And then going into the multi-level governance that is mentioned, so it was also discussed in addition to, of course, to the different stakeholders and actors that should be on board. It needs to also go to different levels. So we, for example, again on the circular bio-based Europe side, there was they mentioned, for example, links with bioeconomy strategies. Of course, if you want to link up with strategies, you have to also work with the national, but also regional level to engage them to make those synergies happen. And maybe as one of the final points, there was also this feeling on the more from the synergy perspective, and there was a request from a couple of speakers and participants to spend a bit time to coordinate and help also the partnerships to establish those synergies with other partnerships, with other initiatives. We talked also quite a bit about EU missions, so that there is really a kind of a good portfolio approach going forward. So I think that's enough for my side. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank all the rapporteurs and also the participants to the workshops for this very comprehensive discussion and overview of the results from those discussions. So many thanks, and I hope that this will be useful for you, for your own thoughts at national level and also for us at European level in the Commission. So many thanks for this very constructive and fruitful discussions. Thank you. Let's now move to the next point on our agenda, which is also linked to shaping the future of our partnerships and an outlook to the next framework program. And here I would like to open the floor and give the floor to Alex Grablowitz, who is chairing the Partnership Knowledge Hub and who will present the opinion of the Partnership Knowledge Hub on the next framework program. Alex will be online and the presentation will be presented on screen. We had a meeting yesterday with the delegates of the Partnerships Knowledge Hubs from the member states and associated countries. And this meeting also involved the various partnerships that are implemented under Horizon Europe. So Alex, if you can hear us and if you are online, please, the floor is yours. Is Alex online? Can you please confirm?
Yes, I'm online. I hope you can hear me and see me.
Yes, perfectly, Alex.
Perfectly. Basically, I can show basically the same presentation that we presented yesterday, and I'm not sure how we can best do this. Can somebody maybe from the technical team see whether we can use the presentation from yesterday? Otherwise, and as long as this is not working, I simply start already by saying, first of all, I'm very sorry that I can't be with you, but I got infected and with another COVID infection, so I have to stay at home. And I hope that yesterday the meeting went well, so I hope that we also managed today's discussion. The whole year of 2024 was basically devoted in the Partnership Knowledge Hub to develop the opinion on FP10 of the partnerships. And I guess most of you should have seen the opinion because we developed the opinion in a very inclusive manner by first of all developing a scoping note on what should be the contents of the opinion already in February or March. We were asking both all the member states and the partnership representatives to give us feedback on the scoping note. Then we started to work in a small working group of the Partnership Knowledge Hub on the main outcomes and the results. And we developed over the summer the first full draft of the opinion, which we then discussed again in October with all the partnership representatives in a hearing. And out of this, we developed a version that yesterday, I would say, received a 95% approval rate from delegations of the Partnership Knowledge Hub. Let me underline two things. The first thing is that the work of this working group would not have been possible without the fantastic support of the ERA-Learn team that not only organizes this conference as part of the strategic coordinating process, but also made very important contributions to the opinion, especially for all the evidence collection, and they organized a vision workshop for us and so on and so forth. So I guess they should get a big applause here from in the room. I don't know whether I can hear this. Okay. I guess you're still clapping, huh? Okay. Now let's look a little bit on the main messages that are emerging from this opinion. I guess the main message that is emerging from this opinion is that we have seen that the expectations on the partnerships basically increased over time. And if you look at the Letter report, the Draghi report, and then the Heiter report, I guess there are two main issues where we see that these are the new policy objectives for partnerships under FP10. The one is tackle successfully, if possible, the EU innovation paradox. So the problem that we have excellent research, but we lack valorization of knowledge. And the second point is, and that was highlighted very much in the Letter report, was that partnerships should contribute to achieving the fifth freedom. So to have that to achieve the free circulation of knowledge, technology, and researchers, as requested by the treaty that is bounding together the European Union. And indeed, I think there is no other policy field than research policy that is possible to achieve this full fifth freedom, because international transnational cooperation is so much at the heart of our policy field, and researchers are in fact the most mobile employees of all employees that we have in the European Union and globally, basically as well. So I think if you see that this is the two new large challenges, so the innovation paradox and the fifth freedom, I guess it's very clear that we can say that the partnerships in the partnerships of FP10, we cannot continue everything as we did today. However, we should not throw the baby with the bath and start completely new. We have had a very significant change of policy approach under Horizon Europe, and I think we need to consolidate this and to make it more impactful. I guess this is one of the main messages stemming from the opinion. I think in the opinion, we had basically 6 main dimensions that we were looking at when we were discussing preparing the opinion. And I will not now go through all the details, but let me highlight some issues that for the group I think are really, really important. The first is that if we want to avoid the problem that we had this time, that basically the real implementation of the partnerships took at least 1 or 2 years from the adoption of the framework program, because all the things first need to be settled in, and it was a consecutive discussion and so on. If we want to be ready with a clear idea about how the partnership portfolio should look like in FP10, we have to start preparing this now, because this might include a number of very difficult choices, and these choices can only be made together between member states, the EU institutions, and the partnerships themselves, so the communities. Because at the end of the day, we do this work for the beneficiaries at the end of the day. We want companies to be more innovative and to be successful on markets, and we want researchers to develop the best research result and the most impactful research results. So it must be, we have to always think in their interest. But we have to start very soon in preparing this portfolio. And I think with the establishment on the strategic coordinating process and of the partnership knowledge hub, we have the structure in place that can be used for this if everybody is committed and sufficiently ambitious. And this is something we have to see basically next year, whether there is ambition and also resources on the side of the Commission, on the side of the member states, and on the side of the partnerships to basically work together towards this goal. Again, partnership started as a policy experiment, and this again would be a big policy experiment, because it's the legal structure and the legal framework we're dealing here is very strict, and this would mean to basically go to use it as flexible as possible and maybe even a little bit beyond. And that needs a lot of flexibility and creativity from our sides. Let's see whether we are able to do so. The second very important point is that we need to better define when to use a partnership, why, and then better also define the criteria when to go for a co-programmed, institutionalized, or a co-funded partnership. On the transition between Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe, this was done in a more, I would say, ad hoc way, and I guess this we need to do much better now and to be better prepared for this discussions. Partnerships involve a lot of additional efforts, and these additional efforts are only worth if we have also a results and impact in the same magnitude or even more. The other point is that from the strategic policy approach, what is important is that while we proved very well that we can do joint calls and joint research activities that we've done now for 20 years, as the title of the conference is saying, but we should now focus more on these knowledge valorization aspects. That's very clearly the link also to the overcoming EU innovation paradox as policy objective that I stated earlier. So these parts are really important when we want to look from that we want to improve the implementation and the preparation of the partnership portfolio for FP10. It's very clear that the selection process for partnerships will be very, very important, and we need time for this. Because a partnership is also research innovation partnerships are, as any other partnerships, are built on trust and mutual understanding. And for building trust and mutual understanding, you need time. And a lot of the comments I've seen from the summary from the rapporteurs from the sessions earlier underlined always this issue is challenging, is needed, it provides added value, but it needs time. So that's why, again, we have to start as early as possible on this. The second point on the selection is that we better have, and this is a key message also from the Draghi report, to better align the national and the industrial agendas with those at the European level. And that's why we need for the partnerships, and the partnerships are now also not only a strategic policy instrument at EU level, but also a strategic policy instrument at national level and the sector level, is that we need to have also this kind of national mirror structure or whatever, so these national dialogue structures that will help to have an informed discussion and decision making at European level. I think the next point on the selection is, this again is complicated, is that we need to understand what role the partnership should play in the overall Horizon Europe framework, in the overall thematic field of the framework program. So when it's about health or about technologies or about climate change or whatever kind of topic, we have to better understand on which topics, on which issues it makes sense to go with a classical FP instrument, so with calls and with research project. When do we need partnerships? When do we need whatever kind of different instruments? So this must be seen not separated, but in an integrated way. And for example, the fact that I, at least from the feedback I received from colleagues, that the work of the joint undertakings, the work programs of the joint undertakings and of the co-program partnerships and of the EIT KICs are hardly discussed in the thematic program committees is maybe a sign that there is some room for improvement here. The next important dimension we were looking at was the governance issue. And governance is always important, especially when we live in such a complex, multi-level reality as we in Europe do. So we have regional, national level, we have European level that is interacting in a very difficult to understand ways, to keep it like this. So if we want, again, to achieve a better alignment between the agendas of national policies and programs, of industry interest and of startups and of the European level, we need also to make a governance that allows for this and that provides sufficient resources. What we've seen in Horizon Europe is that there's the lack of coherence between directorates, between the different levels, led to a lot of confusion, uncertainty of the actors, and at the end made partnerships not as attractive as they must be. Because only attractive, if partnerships are attractive for the beneficiaries, is that then we will also achieve the best result. It's a little bit like we say in a German say, well, if you are fishing, then the worm has to taste the fish and not the fisherman. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind when we are developing the governance here. The next dimension we were tackling in the opinion is basically the simplification and the improvement of the implementation. I guess, as far as I understood now the presentations from the rapporteurs, I think that was also one of the key issues. And I think a lot of good proposals are now on the table, and they simply have to be implemented. Sounds simple and easy, but of course it will be complicated end of the day. Again, we need a specific tailor-made administrative framework for the partnerships because they're different than usual projects. And we have to start now to develop the conditions, because at the start of the next framework program, all of this must be ready for implementation. We cannot afford anymore, like we have it now, that even after 4 years, we're not yet sure how in-kind contributions from RPOs can be recognized as costs or not, and how and all of this. This is really not a very positive situation. And here we have to work more, and we have to start working now, because it's extremely important that we continue with having also the research performing organizations and the private sector actively involved as participants of the partnerships. That's really, really important to increase, again, the alignment between the different levels and the alignment between the, and to have the ownership of the other actors also for the partnerships. The reinforced focus on the knowledge valorization will require that we allow for a very flexible blending of different funding sources. Again, this is at the moment extremely complicated, but this is something we have to facilitate. And this is the core of the discussion of synergies. So we should stop having this as a general policy concept and to really tackle this on the ground and to discuss with experts how we can do this in practice and allow this flexible blending of funding sources. And we should not be afraid of the court of auditors everywhere, neither on national level nor on European level. The last dimension we were looking at in the opinion is basically the question, do the instruments that we have can meet the objectives? So again, I guess the main message is, and you will find this very prominent in the opinion, is that we do not reinvent the wheel completely. The 3 instruments we have are in principle okay, and then provide a lot of flexibility, and we can do a lot of this structure. And now that finally all the beneficiaries go more or less used and accustomed, it wouldn't make sense to again reinvent completely the wheel. On the other hand, we have also to understand, and here I come to the point of how to better link this to the 5th freedom that the letter report is calling for, is that we have to better understand that these partnerships are really important parts of completing the European research area, the same as research infrastructures. And this is something we have to keep in mind when looking at the instruments, at the different instruments. Why I'm saying this? I think to establish a partnership and to run it for 1 framework program or 2 framework programs is already a huge achievement, because we establish a European community on a certain topic, a community of practice. That's really, really important. And this has a big added value. And we don't need, and this should be much better appreciated and recognized and acknowledged as a value as such, to have the network established. And we need to make sure that this network is basically well accepted and recognized. So we need to have a differentiated way on how we fund from the European level these transnational dimensions of the partnerships. Some need only this networking support, and some will need much more resources also for co-funding the research activities. And all the details on this you will find in the opinion. Sorry for being a little bit too long, but I'm too enthusiastic here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex, for presenting us the main outcomes of the opinion of the Partnerships Knowledge Hub on FP10. The report will be adopted formally very soon, but in the discussions yesterday we had a consensus on the content of this report. So you will also be able to see it as soon as it is published. Since we are a bit late on schedule, let me move immediately to our panel discussion today, which is also linked to the future of our framework programs. As you can see, and as we are currently kickstarting also all the reflections on FP10, there are many contributions from various actors concerning the next framework program. Several expert groups have published reports on the interim evaluation of Horizon Europe and also made recommendations for European partnerships under FP10 in the past months. So the panel discussion today will focus on the future of European partnerships, discussing the inputs from various perspectives. The goal is to discuss if the current modus operandi should be continued or if any changes are needed, and if so, which changes are needed. So for the panel discussion, I would like to introduce 6 high-level speakers. So Alex, you are already here on stage, so please stay online. Alex, as we know, is co-chair of the Partnerships Knowledge Hub, and he's also heading the unit for EU Research and Innovation Policy in the Federal Ministry of Education and Research. So Alex, stay with us. Our next speaker is Mr. Axel Krijn, who is the Executive Director of the Clean Aviation Joint Undertaking. Mr. Krijn has been at the helm of Clean Aviation and its predecessor Clean Sky 2 since February 2019. He spent more than 2 decades with Airbus in various executive management positions. Mr. Krijn, welcome. Please join the panel. Then it is also my pleasure to welcome Muriel Attané, who has been EARTO's Secretary General since July 2013. Before that, she worked as EU Affairs Manager for more than 10 years for the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research, TNO, the largest Dutch RTO. In parallel, she was Secretary General of EARPA, the European Association of Automotive R&D Organizations, for 7 years. Muriel, welcome. Then I would also like to call for our panel Mrs. Maria Chiara Carrozza, who has been president of the Italian National Research Council, the CNR, since April 2021. Ms. Carrozza is also the chair of European Science Advisors Forum, the ESAF Forum. As a member of the high-level expert group for FP10 of the European Commission, she also contributed to the report Align, Act, Accelerate Research, Technology and Innovation to Boost European Competitiveness, who has been presented in October 2024. So welcome, Mrs. Carrozza. Then I would like to welcome Mr. Martin Kern, who is the director of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology since 2019, following his appointment by the EIT Governing Board and having previously held interim director and chief operating officer at the EIT. Prior to joining the EIT, Mr. Kern also worked and held a variety of posts, mainly dealing with enlargement policy and financial assistance to support economic and social development programs. And I would like also to welcome on stage Mrs. Joanna Drake, who is currently the Deputy Director General at DG Research and Innovation, focusing on implementation and sustainable investment strategies. Mrs. Drake has previously held key roles at DG Environment and DG Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, where she led initiatives on resources efficiency, the collaborative economy and SMEs policy. Before joining the European institutions, Mrs. Drake also worked in legal and regulatory positions in various companies and also in at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Malta. Joanna, welcome also to our panel. I will join the panel to open the discussion. So give me a few seconds so that I can also take the mic. So thank you, dear panelists, for your attendance today. I will start with the first question to Alex Grablovitz, who is, as I said, co-chair of the Partnerships Knowledge Hub. So, Alex, let me look into questions. Alex, you have just presented the Partnerships Knowledge Hub opinion on FP10. Considering this opinion and also the ERAC position as well, which of the recommendations do you believe should be implemented in priority and why for the next framework program? For the next framework program. What would you suggest that should be changed in the process of selection and portfolio building of partnerships, and how would this make a difference? Please, Alex.
Yes, thanks very much, Fabienne. I'm very happy to see all of you, also for the other panel members. I feel a little bit like Big Brother is watching you here from on the screen, what I can see. Anyway, I presented already extensively the opinion on the of the Partnership Knowledge Hub on an FP10. So I think the most important things I mentioned already. I think what we have to acknowledge is that partnerships started 20 years ago as a policy experiment, and they are now strategic policy instrument at national, industry, and EU level. And now we have to make one step more. We have, and if you look at the Heitobe report, the report of Letta and of Draghi, it's clearly that we have to do more on competitiveness. So we have to focus more on knowledge valorization, and we have to do more on the fifth freedom. So that's why we need to use this also as a policy instrument, the partnerships, especially with involving RPOs, private sector, and to have a lot of national support activities on this. So the most important issue for me from this opinion is really to start now to preparing jointly the portfolio that we need in 2028. And this is legally not so easy. So that's why we need trust that we are all working towards a higher good, which is to have attractive partnerships that can really deliver impact. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I would now turn to Mr. Crane. You are Executive Director of a joint undertaking, and while some key inputs for the new Commission, like the Draghi report, foresees an important role for GUs to secure Europe's competitiveness, there have also some concerns that have been voiced over the implementation of joint undertakings under Horizon Europe, linked, for instance, to the expected private members' contributions. With the preparations for the Horizon Europe midterm evaluation, which is now full swing, which will include also a dedicated 10 years review of joint undertakings, do you think that the current joint undertaking model has fit its purpose, and how would it need to be adapted if some adaptations are needed to serve even more ambitious objectives in the future?
Yeah, to your first point, first of all, good morning to everyone. Your first point related to the contribution of the private side. This is fortunately, in our case, very quite excellent indeed, because we have a target of 100%, so meaning €1 from the Commission, €1 from the private side in terms of in-kind contribution, and the court has just indicated that we are delivering 130%. So to that extent, it's quite okay for us, and in the current program which we are running right now, the Clean Aviation program, there we have a target of 1.5, a factor of 1.5, and we are delivering above. So it's an excellent return and an excellent leverage for any EU money. To your second point, I'm very much convinced that this joint undertaking, this public-private partnership, and I call it usually a joint venture, because what we are doing is we are combining the resources and the competences from the public and the private side, and have a quite, I would say, lean way of operating within the governing board, which is meeting 3-4 times a year, taking basic decision, and then we are executing on that. So I think the basic instrument is good, but I definitely believe we need to adapt it because the rest of the world is not sleeping. And I mean, Alex mentioned competition, and I think when you look at the competition context, and here specifically for aviation, it's the US and China, they are doing things which are not comparable to what we are allowed to do at the moment. And I think that's why we definitely need to adapt our current system. What we also need to overcome is the fragmentation. We are very fragmented. Certainly what I would like to see is that we are looking at elements how to quickly get the technologies into the market. And another challenge not to be underestimated, and I think we haven't spoken about it too much this morning yet, the researchers, the scientists, the engineers. So for me, I would keep the basic structure, but would definitely work on, and when you look at the fragmentation between Europe and the member states and the regions, we are spending, all of us, billions and billions, and we are not connecting each other. So what we need to do, we need to have one strategy, one roadmap, a work share. This is being executed at regional level, this is being executed at national level, this is being executed at European level. And this work share doesn't exist today. So it's all happening, but uncoordinated. Secondly, as well at European level, I mean, we also need to look at our own house, and there we have instruments which are not connected. I very much like the word synergies, but I mean, it's a buzzword, and people are calling, yes, we have met, we had a coffee together. This is not synergies for me. Synergies is when you have really a technical roadmap which is connecting to each other, where one deliverable is handed over to another one and then being worked upon, and this is not happening. So I read sometimes in the press that some of people we are talking to, entities we are working with, is being awarded 100 million grant from the Innovation Council just a couple of weeks ago, and I didn't know about it. I mean, I don't need to know everything, but I would appreciate that we could connect the dots much better in Europe, and I think would be much more effective and efficient than keeping it in isolation. And today we are working far too much in isolation between Europe and the member states, but also within Europe. I think there is a lot to be gained. And then we also need to, maybe my last point, we need to also refer back to how do we get technologies quickly into the market. And in aviation, it's a very regulated environment. And there, for example, I'm envying the Americans a bit. They have an instrument where they are building prototypes. So they are building prototypes where they are not like us basically developing an engine, an aircraft engine, and flying it on a test bench in the air. But what they are doing is that they're building a complete aircraft with all the systems interfacing with each other and testing it out. And that makes it much more easy than afterwards to put it into the market. So these are the couple of points where I believe, yes, instrument is good, but room for improvement.
Thank you. And coming back to one of the aspects that you are calling for improvement, because we also heard it in previous panels and previous discussions on the coordination and on the connections. Based on the successful example of your joint undertaking, would you have some examples in mind or some actions in mind that could also make a difference based on your experience?
I would do two things very concretely. The first one is putting all aviation R&I under one roof. So if you have it under one roof, under one governance with different pillars, different rules, but then you have the coordination built in. I mean, this is the first thing in terms of European R&I. And secondly, when you then connect with member states, I think we need to develop a common strategy, a common roadmap, and a work share. Again, it's not about putting all the funds into one pot. At European level, we should do that, all the aviation-related funds into one pot. But what we should do at the level between the regions and the member state and Europe, we should develop that work share where it's very clear who is executing what. And I think this is missing. Definitely because we have overlapping actions, we have holes, because we don't know from each other. And there is a lot of effort ongoing between member states and us as well, where we are meeting, where we are discussing, but it's all I would all call it more coffee drinking than technical road mapping. I maybe undervalue a bit what we are doing, but I think we need to move the line much more to that common roadmaps, to that work share than what we do today.
Thank you. And what you mentioned is indeed also a concern or a challenge in other partnerships, but types of partnerships beside the GUs. But voilà, it's nice that we also have, for some examples, for such challenges also, that we can have the concrete actions that also can help tackling these challenges. So thank you, Mr. Crane. I would like now to move to Muriel Attané. As the EARTO has recently presented a position paper on FP10, your paper calls for streamlining and strengthening current EU R&I public-private partnerships with simpler and faster funding procedures. How could this be done in practice?
Okay, thank you very much, Fabienne. Thank you for the invitation as well. Maybe we have even more. So today we published a paper on the partnerships. So trying to look for the different type of partnerships, the three of them, what we felt and what our members were experiencing. It varies per type. So I must say that when I'm talking to the audience here, you all know. But when we're discussing higher up, then I have a big bunch which is called partnerships, and people don't understand that there is three types, that the three types are very different. Maybe a little bit less on the GUs and the PPPs, but certainly on the co-fund. But if you look at the co-funds and then the GUs, they do have similar problems. So when I'm talking about partnerships, I have a big basket to defend, but we have very different views on the three different partnerships. In general, we are quite satisfied, but when we have to put the EU money and the national money, then hiccups comes, and that's what you're discussing in your GUs, that we need to go further. What we see in the discussion for the MFF, so the next EU budget, is that what comes is Draghi. So I don't hear about the fifth freedom. I think, Alexander, what we hear today is the problem of overburden of legislation. We hear problem of valorization, and then it's the RDI politics which are taking the hits, including the partnerships and any other programs, where sometimes I think our knowledge valorization is doing very well. We have even EIC startups, very good, but they are bought by Americans and not our industry. Then maybe we think, oh shit, we're not so bad at, scaling up, but who's scaling up further for production is not the Europeans. So sometimes we shoot on the partnerships and on the RDI instruments or the RDI policy, where sometimes it's more the links between the RDI policy and our industrial policy, which has issues. And I think that's where you see we need a big pot and one instrument for one type of industry. So is that the competitiveness GUs written down in the Draghi report, which are saying, okay, we just need big stuff and big programs, so big program on one type of industry. And then we may have to make some picks, meaning do we have 10, like the 10 Draghis, competitiveness industrial sector, and then we leave the others which are not quoted. So that's the job that I think Alexander is saying, should we do portfolio management and then which one we choose? Today we have 50 plus partnerships. If you listen to that, that means you're doing something on Microelectronics Chip Act 2, and then you have one big GUs and different type of instruments, and maybe the partnerships will go below. But then the big discussion will be, how do you combine your public EU money and the national public EU money and the regional public EU money to private RDI investment from the industry? Then you are discussing even more complex tools, which may be super partnerships plus, meaning a GU plus, and then are we ready to do that as a community? We all invested in 50 plus partnerships. Of course, they need combination, but we all know the difficulties within those small partnerships, let's say, on how hard it can be. So I think for FP10, there will be a lot of discussion into the portfolio, which future portfolio are we going to go to bigger? And we already have quite some discussion on simplification for the smaller instruments we may see today. So I think the MFF will bring a lot of discussion and trends that maybe we are not discussing in that environment, but that will be deciding higher up for us. First, the budget we will have, the budget for Pillar 2, and again, then within Pillar 2, what we could do with partnerships. And I think the key question will be national money versus the EU money. We have also other instruments being discussed, the IPCEs with a top-off of EU for, let's say, state aid support. So how are you going to link that also to the partnerships will be also a question in the future. A lot of the IPCEs have been launched by partnerships. So you will have also the coordination of the partnerships, but with the other parts of the instruments that will come. And how are you going to link the RDI policy with the industrial policy, and what role you guys are going to play, GUs or PPPs? I think that will be key. I think for us, our members have seen a lot of failure in the co-funds, especially trying to make proposals and then member states withdrawing the national money last minute, and then people are saying, "Wow, co-funds are too complicated and I'm losing time and money." So let's not do that again. So I think you will have a lot of discussion. I think Alexander, as the co-chair of the PKH, is very, very ambitious. Let's try with this portfolio discussion. I think it's worth putting the issue on the table. I think it's worth looking a little bit broader and not maybe starting from what you have just on the table, but also looking at your political environment. I think Draghi will have probably more impact than Letta or even the ATOR report, even if we hope with the request of the ATOR report to the 220 billion euro. And I think here Maria Chiara will probably say more, having worked on that. But quite some challenges. More than the simplification, I think we may see simplification of the overall system in the MFF. And then we have to be worried, maybe simplification is not what we meant in simplification of the partnerships. But we are happy of that tool, so we need to improve it and make advertisement of it. So a call for you guys here, you are all the partnerships lovers, even if sometimes it's a love-hate relationship. Please advertise what you're doing. Give the successes, like it was done this morning. We have scale up. We did improve the relation between the public spending and the private ones. We do have technology roadmap. There are big investments, you know, and the US also envies those ones. So not only envy the US, but tell that other people are also looking at us and that we're not doing such a bad job either.
Thank you, Muriel, and also linking to the strategy, the objectives that we intend to follow and intend to implement, to put in place, and linking also the partnerships and the types of partnerships to these strategies. So thank you for your intervention. I would now move to Ms. Carrozza. Mrs. Carrozza, as I said, you are a member of the high-level group on the interim evaluation of Horizon Europe. How did partnerships feature in your recommendations, and what role should they play vis-à-vis the other instruments in the next framework program, according to you?
Thank you very much, and also thank you for inviting me here. It's been a long time that I'm working on partnership. I also was chair of the interim evaluation of the partnership instruments, developing the methodology for assessing partnerships. So it is a long time that I know this instrument, and also I would like to see this instrument really working and being successful in achieving our objective. What is our objective? The objective, I think, is of partnership is to I don't know, integrate the effort from private sectors to public sectors, and to also with the steering of public authorities in reaching industrial objectives and value objectives. So it is to create value together and to reach some objectives which must be set up, and especially in the industrial area, and also to convey private investment to reach this in a collaborative way. So our recommendation are exactly on that. First of all, align. It is the first word that we used, and align means to align policies of member states, of European Commission, of different authorities, of different associations, of different representative of the different bodies in Europe in order to achieve a result and to scale up what the research is producing in Europe, and also what industries are producing in Europe, and to have European industry stronger than before. Okay, so, and alignment is fundamental. So fragmentation is an enemy for us. It's evil for us. So it's important to align our policies and to find instruments to align and to reach this objective. And FP10 is the last call for achieving these results. And then act. That means put in practice what we would like to obtain and to achieve, and investigate if partnerships as they are designed today are the right instruments for achieving results. Not all areas are similar. For example, life science has some objectives and difficulties and obstacles. Automotive industry has different objectives, and so not all, one instrument fits for all. That is not correct, because technologies are very different. So it's important that in acting, we realize that there are different objectives. For example, in life science, where joint undertakings are important, we have also the objective of data sharing, of developing clinical trials, of going towards research security, research integrity. There are new areas where it is important to act and align our policies, because if we don't share data, we don't have instruments in this area, clinical trials will not be possible, and we will not have healthcare industry successful in Europe. So it's important to take into consideration that there are specific problems in different areas. Then accelerate. We would like to accelerate our innovation. So innovation procurement is still a way of measuring if we are able to reach our objectives, and also adoption of innovation. If industries are not adopting our innovation, we are not successful. So it's important that there is private investment, and that partnerships could be instrument for attracting private investment, not only in kind, okay, but investment really in research. And what our consideration is also that in Pillar 2 we need more fundamental research, for example in batteries or in energy development, in green hydrogen. Not everything has been solved, so we still need collaborative research and fundamental research. So it's important to keep our excellence in place, but also to keep our possibilities in terms of attracting private investments. If we don't succeed in attracting private investments, that means that our partnerships are not really successful. So I think that this kind of knowledge hub with stakeholders together discussing and sharing ideas on our future are fundamental in order to engage practitioners, engage experts also from industrial point of view, and collaborating with research organizations and universities in order to align policies and find the real priorities. I think that in future in FP10 we must be very transparent and clear. And we can have top-down instruments with top-down priorities, clear and shared among member states, the European Commissions and all, and so align policies, but also bottom-up. And the bottom-up partnership must be I think, kept, because bottom-up research and bottom-up ideas coming from stakeholders and from practitioners are fundamental. But we need clear systems to select, because innovation is based on selection, okay? If we want to keep everything alive, we'll never be successful. We must select few priorities and keep together and integrate partnership and to achieve results, because research is changing. Today we have AI for science, which is something important. AI is accelerating science, is providing results. We have manufacturing partnership here, and we know that AI will be fundamental for our manufacturing companies, and no AI, no manufacturing future. We know from data that we are in the mid-tech gap. We have to get out from this mid-tech gap. So we need to elaborate on industrial objectives and set up partnership for reaching these industrial objectives, but we have also to be flexible because the landscape is changing, and today we have AI, which is emerging and is expanding. We have research security, we have dual research, which will be important, and research security, which will affect the partnership. And so we have to be flexible in adapting our instruments to this evolving scenario.
Thank you. And according to you, since you have looked into the various partnerships, and we had throughout these 2 days many successful initiatives and actions that have been shown. According to you, what is the specific strength that partnership can bring to these ambitions?
To me, the most important strength is related to collaboration. Okay, to the fact that, for example, in the pillar on excellent science, there are individual grants. Here we have partnership. That means you have collaboration among different actors with different missions. So this is the value of partnership, keeping together very different actors and having in mind that we have societal challenges or industrial challenges that are moving people and integrating effort in order to fill the gap. But we must be very clear. We have to fill this gap, not to discuss and to share ideas. We must act. So this is the reason why we said act, because partnerships are not only for discussing, okay, discussion is okay, but are intended to fill the gap. So if filling the gap means that innovation is adopted by industries, that we have success case. So if you have a success case, please show your success cases, because we have to demonstrate that we were able to fill this gap. And also there is the innovation procurement for public administrations in different areas, as also the Draghi and Letta report, and also our report was explaining, is fundamental to have innovation procurement and to fight against bureaucracy, because bureaucracy and hyper-regulation is the problem of Europe. And we have to invest in order to remove those obstacles and being able to scale up our spin-off startup companies and also our companies here in Europe, not only going to other continents to be successful in scaling up. So I think that the real gap is in private investment. We have to fill this gap. So we have to act in order to fill this gap of private investment in our research and innovation.
Thank you, Ms. Garozza. I would now turn to Martin Kern. Mr. Kern, given some position papers that are calling for a restructuring of or the discontinuation even of the EIT, how do you envision the role of the EIT in the European Partnerships Instrument and landscape under the next framework program? What are the lessons learned from the EIT model that could be integrated into the design of future partnerships to enhance their impact and sustainability, given also the successful examples of EIT partnerships initiatives?
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be on the panel today. Very interesting to also follow the discussions, and thanks a lot also for the opinion, the report for the Partnership Knowledge Hub. We think it's a very strong report which brings out all the key issues, and thanks also for consulting extensively EIT and the KICs. On your two questions, we did notice, of course, the criticism on EIT and KICs in some of the position papers. We also noticed that there is little concrete facts on why this criticism takes place. So we also noted, thirdly, that on the other hand, when it comes to the more factual evaluations, such as the Innovative Europe studies, the biannual monitoring report on the partnerships, we noticed a lot of strengths of the EIT, a lot of value added being put there. So what do I mean concretely? For example, it's also in the PKH opinion, EIT KICs have the highest leverage in terms of mobilizing private sector funding among the partnerships, but even more importantly, EIT delivered on its core objectives. So we have trained 100,000 of people. Actually, this morning we had a milestone in the European Battery Alliance Academy, has trained 100,000 people in itself in a key sector for Europe to increase its competitiveness. We delivered on startups, so EIT supported, created around 10,000 startups through the KICS, and many of them became success story. Actually, the value of the portfolio is 70 billion euros, which we think really makes a substantial contribution also for Europe's competitiveness, and put over 2,500 innovative products on the market. So actually what you just referred to, delivering successes, delivering, commercializing innovation. So not only that, these are the concrete results, but and that's quite unique. Actually, EIT has created a model which makes the innovation communities themselves sustainable. And we just have a pivotal moment this month. The first 3 of them reached the 15 years, which is the life cycle. And all 3 of them, EIT Energy, EIT Digital, EIT Climate Kick, are financially sustainable. So they will continue their activities without the EIT funding, which is something quite, I think, unique among partnerships and even more widely among EU instruments. Does that mean everything is great? No, of course not. There's a lot of room for improvement. I think EIT KIC governance can be simplified for the supervision of the KICs. Certainly the cooperation between EIT and EIC is not optimal, because the 2 instruments are not really designed to work hand in hand, and I think that's something that should be addressed and changed. And also within the EIT, we feel sometimes it's complex to access the different partnerships. They have different models. So coming to your second part of your question, what could be done better, is to address some of these issues. Now, what could EIT contribute to the future partnership landscape more broadly? 3 points here. I think EIT KICs are very well placed to play a stronger role at the cluster level. Why is that? First of all, because they have substantial capacity, they're legal entities, they're institutionally strong, and secondly, by nature, the societal challenges covered by the KICs are very broad, whereas other partnerships are often more narrow. So we have a partnership, for example, EIT Health, and there's another partnership on brain health, which is of course one aspect of it. So EIT KICs can help with that coordination role, as they also during their life cycle can change their priorities depending on where there is the innovation potential is very high. So that could be the first part. Second part is to make available more the shared services, and actually EIT has an inbuilt mechanism for synergies. So I very much agree what was said before, that the synergy is only valuable if they deliver something concrete. Caroline gave an example earlier, and this is something we have inbuilt. So 7% of the EIT budget is actually for the cooperation between the KICs, and they are on artificial intelligence, on the new European Bauhaus, on shared services, on many, many aspects. We incentivize this working together, and we see very often great results on it. Then EIT, thirdly, also has very interesting model, which I think can serve as an interesting learning for the other partnerships. So the funding is performance-based. More results, more impact means more EIT funding being given by our governing board. And I think that's something that really has helped KICs to leverage funding, to move towards financial sustainability, but also to develop their or deliver their KPIs. And we also have an impact framework. So an impact framework which really measures not just the outputs that I mentioned, but also the results on the societal challenges. So this can be very interesting models to study, and that we feel the EIT has delivered upon. EIT is still integrating into the partnership landscape. Again, as Alex also said, that takes time. Unfortunately, maybe more than expected, but by having now soon 10 knowledge innovation communities, there's especially the need to also make sure those which are no longer requiring EIT or EU or Horizon Europe funding also remain in this partnership landscape, because there's of course a lot of experience, a lot to be gained. So we're looking forward to a design of FP10 that builds on these developments, that builds on these lessons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. I will now turn to Mrs. Drake. Joanna, the there are reflections ongoing on the future framework program, and here DG Research and Innovation plays a vital role in these reflections. What could you share with us, with the audience, regarding those internal reflections on the future European partnerships? Are there any reflections that are very different from the Partnerships Knowledge Hub opinion that has just been presented by Alex? Could you say something about this?
Thank you so much, Fabienne, and thank you for inviting me here in this very interesting panel discussion about partnerships, listening to the various stakeholders, and I'm sure that also listening to the workshops earlier, I think, we're all thinking in the same directions. After all, this is a 20-year-old story that has come together, and many of the actors have been actually working together, maybe in isolation in terms of where they're concentrating, but in fact, it's a community build up that has obviously improved in its momentum and also in its, I would say, maybe identity as well. And I think it's a good time that and a pivotal moment not only for Europe because of the whole geopolitical situation, but I think because it actually makes sense that you actually take stock and actually prepare yourself also for even a better leap forward, if you like, to get better results and faster, and therefore the acceleration that Professor Carrozza was talking about. I think speed is of the essence today, strategy is of the essence today, but results are also of the essence. But let me make it very clear before reflecting on the future, and I have to, by the way, emphasize that they are reflections only at this point. So what we're doing here is sharing that and trying to give a structure and a feel of what the priority should be. But first and foremost, we do acknowledge within the Commission that partnerships have been a success. And that, and of course, I mean, we can go on and say why. There are lists of why, but it's obvious, that one of the things I think that we need to emphasize is what is obvious is that, the coming together of many different communities and at the same time of actually joining them up in a working together mode and in order to understand each other but also to produce together. And in terms of the research community, of course, that deepens it and that makes it more relevant and therefore more recognizable even for business, the politicians, for future generations, for actually aligning ourselves to what we want to achieve. But of course, we are also at the point when we are reflecting about the FP10, and with it comes a reflection not only about the budget, which I think is going to shape the mood and the flavor and, and the direction of so many things, which is going to be aligned, aligning our thoughts going forward. And of course, this community is going to be part of that influential journey getting to there. We have to also acknowledge the room for improvement, which I think has been well expounded from many aspects over here. And of course, these concerns, these qualms, these suggestions, these reflections from your end, maybe also these frustrations do not go unheard. And I think my colleagues in Fabienne's unit, but also within the European Commission, are very much aware and very much ears to the ground on this and keen to make things better and also to join the improvement journey. We are thoroughly reflecting on many of the aspects that have already been mentioned, not only the portfolio ones, but also the simplification and also the way that we monitor also what the partnerships are actually coming up with. But I would like to highlight two keywords here, maybe. First of all, the simplification keyword and also the streamlining keyword, which I think is really, if we had to summarize, would be, looking from the outside, I think what is really like directing our reflections. We have not decided on exactly what to do, because this is first of all a journey. As we said, we want to make sure that we are aligned ourselves with what is actually happening and really getting a good grip on that and a good understanding of it. Well, the PKH opinion has been, interesting to listen to. It does look at the improvements that need to be made in a very incremental way. We are looking more and more about the foundational problems or concerns or challenges and addressing them. So I would typically mention the topology and also the implementation methods. But I'm very happy that alignment here has been quite a popular word. And of course, we are at a pivotal moment of a new commission coming in. The president made her guidelines very well known even in July. So even that has already been quite a subject of a lot of discussion. But one thing maybe that is very important that came out of the PKH opinion is that we are not starting from scratch. It's not as if we are creating a new instrument. As I said, we do acknowledge this is a success story. We just want to make it even more successful, more agile, more seen to be agile and successful, and more, I would say, aligned to also the political objectives. So the ecosystem is there, and this is quite an achievement in itself. But we need to look more towards the overall objectives of the partnerships, how we align ourselves strategically. I mean, Axel was talking about a strategic roadmap, a work plan that is a little bit more sort of joined up within also the ecosystem. And I think this comes as part also of being more joined up in what we are doing, and looking at the challenges ahead and creating a visible link. Maybe what Professor Carazza here was talking about. She was talking about the investment gap from the private sector, but she was also talking about the gap between what we are doing and maybe the fragmentation of what's going on, and making it more and more going towards visibly the European challenges. Maybe towards also creating a critical mass of action and also fostering even more vibrant, and I would add agile also, ecosystems. So I think it is more a reflection which is driven by the form of the instrument following the function. And if I had to perhaps decipher, clear trends in the thinking or in the reflections that's going on, is first of all, further simplifying the instrument itself. And by that we mean more flexibility, more room for collaboration between the different types of partners, for instance, also between the public and the private actors. I would mention, secondly, the portfolio dimension of future partnerships. And this in itself will force us to further streamline and consolidate the current landscape. And I would say a third trend, or a third stream of work or reflections rather, is about how we look at a life cycle approach. Because we want to have a dynamic portfolio that can in itself reflect the policy priorities and also to facilitate more mature partnerships transitioning beyond also relying on framework program funding. But of course, this is still very broad thinking here. I mean, if we had to think about the various ways of how all these things can be done, as I said, simplification and streamlining, portfolio approach, life cycle approach,
there's a lot of ways of how we can do it, and probably we will agree with these main and broad work streams, but we need to see the how and the why. As we lawyers like to say, the devil is always in the detail. And this is exactly why we are here, because we want to hear the detail, we want to know the detail. We know the detail, but obviously we want to also have our eyes set on how to make this an even more agile and productive ecosystem of not only a community building, but of how the community can actually move forward via the partnerships as well.
Thank you, Joanna. To close our panel discussion, I would like to ask a question to all of you, and which is inviting you to tell us about one aspect that has worked well, according to you, in partnerships, and should be maintained for the next framework program, and also one that we would need to improve in priority in the future to ensure that the partnerships instruments can achieve their objective. I would maybe start with Muriel, and then I will also ask the other panelists.
Thank you, Fabienne. I apologize, but I will have to fly for the next panel.
Yeah.
SP10 is a busy time at the moment. I think for us it's linking how can the partnership can be really the next instruments for policy making in terms of linking the RDI policy with the industrial policy to target, increasing the private RDI investments in Europe. I think that's one. And then simplifying, of course, the landscape, but sometimes the instruments and the co-funding from member states. That will be the two key for us.
Thank you, Muriel. I would turn to Alex. Are you still with you? Yes, you're online. So please, Alex, according to you, what would be one element we should maintain in priority, and one that would need to be improved in the future?
Thanks very much. I think for me, the big success of the partnerships is that they are able really to pool resources. And I think we have now something between 50 and 60 billion euros pooled on all the partnerships under Horizon Europe. And I think that's a huge success. So there's a lot of interest and there's a need for these partnerships. What really is, what we need to work on is to make it more attractive for the best communities and to better align with the national and the industrial priorities so that we can achieve exactly what Muriel said, that we have a better kind of interface between both the research policy and the industrial policy, but also, and I think here also that's something very important with the EIT, between the research policy and the education or the higher education policy. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I would now turn to Mr. Crane. What would it be, according to you, that we should maintain, and also what should be improved?
Definitely, what we should maintain is the strong connection between the public and the private entities. I think when I speak about private, I mean industry, yes, but I mean as well SMEs, and I mean universities and research organizations. So for me, the private, even uni, in this context is perceived by me as a private environment. And I think this is definitely something which we need to reinforce and build on, because there are so many good results which we need to foster. What we should improve, we discussed a bit the connection with member states, we discussed a bit the better integration at European level, but I can't leave the stage also to think about that we are sometimes entertaining ourselves. And I think when I think about the admin environment, we have so many KPIs. We are entertaining ourselves with KPIs. I don't know whether you do the same, but I'm sometimes, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of KPIs. And I steer the programs at JU with 4.1 billion euros with a handful. I don't need 50 or 90, but I think they're all in itself not stupid. But when you look at them all together, we don't need more than 10. Secondly, we are entertaining ourselves with new IT tools. We are implementing Summa now. We are kind of guinea pig there. And it's such an effort. I would have loved to stay with the old tool, because that would have made my life much, much easier. And finally, also, and this is maybe quite a serious topic, which is headcount. Because I have been working with sometimes with 30%, 30 interims. 30% of interims in order to be able to execute. So on the budget side, I was able to perform the task, but on the resource, on the people side, I was not able. So with 30% interims and all the difficulties, I mean, you all know those difficulties, it's such a burden, and it's a waste of money as well, because in the end, it costs much, much more. So I would be happy with temporary allocations, not permanent, but temporary for 2-3 years in order to fix certain topic matters. And this would help me definitely, instead of going 6 months interim 1, 6 months interim 2, 6 months interim 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. I would now turn to Mrs. Carrozza. What would it be according to you?
To me, the most important success is related to collaboration, so the integration of different institutions and entities for one single objective or an objective which is very clear and shared. So this is, I think, the most important achievement, and so the creation of this community and also the community that we have today, the Stakeholder Forum, is important to me, and it is an achievement, and we don't have to destroy it because it's the virtual ecosystem of Europe, and I think this is an important value that we have to take into account. And what we can improve in partnership, I think that in our report we mentioned one recommendation, which is choose Europe for talents. So for PhD in Europe, for European students and European graduated, the idea of choose Europe is to find environments for innovation. So my dream is that this kind of instruments, the partnership, could be the instruments to take talents in Europe, because if we have talents choosing Europe, we will have a successful industry, we will have the scale up of companies and similar. So these objectives are interrelated. So we have to be able to create an environment for innovation, and partnership must improve this and maybe extract success case and communicate better what they are doing to young people, to citizens, and to rich citizens in explaining what is their objective.
Thank you. And as it was also highlighted, emphasized yesterday, partnerships are truly European ambitions and initiatives. Mr. Kern, Martin, what would it be according to you? One element we should maintain and one which should maybe improve for the future?
I will stick to one each because a lot has been said, and I will refer it to the EIT's perspective, which is, of course, 10 knowledge innovation communities, so around 20% of the partnerships as a whole. Strengths, I think what in the EIT perspective has worked very well is the openness, and the openness especially combined with widening, meaning we have a very strong geographical coverage all across Europe and very strong participation of beneficiaries, industry, universities, research organizations from also the widening countries. Called Regional Innovation Scheme on our end. So maybe that's a strength that also could be made available to others which are still struggling with that balance or you know, with the openness. Secondly, what can be improved? I think that would build on the coherence of the landscape, which is also an opinion. I think there's a need to revisit the priorities within the partnerships, the priorities overall. Where do we really want to focus on? Are we not doing too many things? And then what are the right structures, the right governances for delivering, in our case, skills, commercializing innovation, supporting startups, and there needs to be a governance fit for purpose for each of them. So I think such a review is necessary because I don't think this will just happen bottom up. So you need either some sort of incentive to work together in key areas that I identified, or some sort of top-down steering on the whole partnership landscape level.
Thank you, Martin. And Joanna, according to you, what should be maintained and what could be improved?
As I said earlier, the 20 years have served to sow and develop the seeds of community building and also of developing synergies, and plus also creating a culture and curating it as well, of going towards an alignment towards the priorities, towards solving problems. Which I think in the end, brings about an output that is far larger than the sum of the individual contributions. And I think this is the key element that needs to be preserved, but that now needs to evolve. And I think the evolution, which is probably the improvement, which I would emphasize, is first of all the reduction of administrative burden. This has been loud and clear, I think, from what we've heard, but also from what we read over the years. And I think the portfolio approach as well, I think, can be improved a lot, because we really are at a moment when we need to be sharply focused on what actually makes, what actually counts and is actually needed most urgently. So I think building into that, not only the clarity of focus of where we're going, but also, I would say, the agility to adapt as we go along as well, as the needs also would dictate.
Thank you, Joanna. So with these last words on what should be maintained and what could be improved, we can close our panel discussion. I would like to thank you all for your attendance, for making yourself available for this discussion, and also for the insights you have given to the audience on the future of partnerships today. So a big applause to our panelists. Many thanks again. And I guess with this, we will, in a moment, move to the conclusion. So many thanks again. So, dear colleagues, we are reaching the end of our Partnerships Forum. And allow me maybe to have just some short conclusions on the 2 days we spent together. What did we do during these 2 days? We looked back into 20 years of implementation of partnerships, looking into the experience that those partnerships faced when they have been set up and also throughout their developments over the 20 years, their achievements, their successes, but also the challenges that they faced and that they are to some extent also still facing. We also showed how during these 2 days, how these partnerships are truly European initiatives, how they collaborate, how they manage to align their strategies, align their roadmaps, how they reduce fragmentation, how they are working together, and how they are implementing their roadmaps. This in order to have an impact at European level in the various fields in which they are working on and which they are implementing their activities and their collaborations. On that, we had several discussions through workshops, through panel discussions. And yesterday and today, we also could go more deeper into the practical experience of those partnerships exploring the challenges, the opportunities across clusters, and also the challenges and opportunities in the light of the forthcoming framework program. Here, we went into more details in relation to the challenges, for instance. Some of them have just been highlighted in our panel discussion, but also just before through the, with the rapporteurs of the different workshops, of the different working groups, we could see that some of these challenges have been highlighted. For instance, the, to some extent, lack of harmonization. We could also see, or it has been highlighted, that time factor is critical in order to deliver on the ambitions, that there is a big diversity of stakeholders to bring together and to connect all together. The need also to enhance further collaborations and to also open the consortia. So these are a couple of challenges that have been mentioned, but on which also a number of partnerships, and we could also see it with the success stories that have been presented, for instance, through the pitches, that on these challenges, the partnerships in those past 20 years have been trying and have also succeeded in tackling those challenges and removing some of them. We could also see today that through those discussions that we had on the experiences that have been shared, that some solutions are on the table, not only because over the years the partnerships have gained a strong experience in collaborating together and facing the challenges and facing all together the challenges. So solutions are also on the table, and so possible solutions are also thought through. For instance, we could see solutions in how to build communities together, how to work in order to facilitate also the connection and to tackle the disconnection among the partners. We had also some examples on how the diverse communities could be brought together and also how these partnerships could open to other countries, could open also beyond Europe. We could also see how some governance systems help also tackling those challenges through the partnerships. And we had also today the Partnerships Knowledge Hub looking back also into the implementation of partnerships and proposing recommendations for the future. We had also concrete examples this morning how synergies among programs and actors and partnerships are built together. How also some simplification processes are thought through and how they can be implemented. And how we can also reach out and communicate to our diverse communities in order also to bring in the partnerships the relevant expertise, the relevant programs, the relevant talents. So these examples this morning have also been part of the discussion. We also had this morning, as I said just before, the PKH, the Partnerships Knowledge Hub vision that has been presented and the recommendations for FP10. And this through discussions at the level of the member states and associated countries, but also bringing in the partnerships all together. And we had yesterday a very fruitful discussion also on this opinion paper that will be soon be adopted and also published. In our panel that just has taken place, we also explored how to look ahead and how we should also not start completely from scratch, how the positive experiences need to be shared, need to be shown to our various communities in Europe and abroad. And linked to this, a number of reports are currently being published, are currently being discussed. Reflections are ongoing at national level and also at European level. And on those successes on partnerships, there is also a paper that has a report that has just been published by Eralen that shows the 20 years of implementation of partnerships. So I invite you to complement and also to work further and also to reflect further on how our partnerships should continue their development and also should be shaped in the future, to look into these papers, to participate to the reflections, and also to build on the experiences that are existing. So I hope that these discussions have been useful for you, that you could learn from those discussions and bring back home also the reflections and the experiences that have been shared. And I'm looking forward to further discussions and to further reflections on the future of partnerships. But most of all, I would like to thank all the participants to this, to our forum this year, to our 2024 edition of the forum. So thank you to all the participants to our forum. Thank you to all the partnerships and also the representatives at national and at national level for the partnerships. And I would also like to warmly thank all our colleagues who participated in the organization of this event. Our colleagues from ERA-Learn who organized today together with us the event. And I would also like to warmly thank my team for the preparation of this forum, my colleagues from the unit working in the partnership, and especially also to my Lucas, who worked hard also joining with ERA-Learn and organizing the Partnerships Forum in my team. So a warm applause to all of you, to all my colleagues, and to the colleagues in my team, and to ERA-Learn. Many thanks for this organization. I wish you a nice day, a safe trip back, and see you at our next forum. Thank you.